Abhimanyu, and this is my co-founder Abhishek. Two koalas in pink from KoalaLab. Thank you so much for joining. So I think this is something you might have heard just a few minutes ago. We are also a company which does hardened open source container images. We provide container images across the whole cloud native stack. Our Koala flavored images are much more secure and much better than anything that you'd find on publicly available sources like Docker Hub or any other place. So I think the reason for our company's existence is this, that developers love open source. And open source has become so ubiquitous that 90% of all applications that you write today is open source, which is like, any Python application today probably has thousands of PyPy and pip packages which runs on a Python container, and that Python container itself comes in many different flavors. It could be a Debian, Ubuntu, or Alpine, or something else. So the open source ubiquity has become a problem for the security teams. So whatever said and done, for security and compliance teams, at the end of the day, open source is a third party. And just like you would have some compliance standards for third parties that work as vendors in your company, for open source also, there are all of these compliance standards, but you can't go grab anyone's collar and tell them to fix the Python's vulnerability. The open source community takes its own time, and the way they do it is in their own manner. So this becomes a drag for your own compliance frameworks, for your own vulnerability management. So what we've usually seen is that your applications will have a lot of clutter in your vulnerability reports because of all of the open source that you use, which delays your compliance. You have to get exceptions for certain critical and high vulnerabilities certain times. And if you have an environment where there's a policy set for having a certain compliance standard on vulnerabilities, you have to keep asking your developers to patch and upgrade the applications that they built 3 or 6 months ago. And then it becomes a tussle between security and developer teams. So these are two big problems that we saw. And that is something that we want to solve right now. And the way to solve it is that we want to become the secure gateway for open source for all of you enterprises. And we do this by providing secure open source containers. So when building this product out, we actually went ahead and looked at the base layer, which is the base Linux operating system. And we realized that Debian is the most widely used Linux distro. It is something that developers and DevOps engineers at most companies are really familiar with. The ecosystem around APT and a lot of other deb packages is very familiar. And any company which has some custom hardening rules in their containers, they're able to do it whenever there's a Debian package available. The problem is that containers which are built on Debian are really, really bloated. They have so much software bloat because of some legacy issues that a Python container that you would download right now, which is the latest one, has 438 packages. And I think it's not written here, but if I remember correctly, it has probably 249 vulnerabilities. So this is what companies are dealing with. So our solution was very simple, which was to take Debian and rethink it from a ground up for a container-first design. And we created a Debian with zero bloat. We call it Zero Deb. And there's a whole bunch of work that has been done. Me and Abhishek will probably speak about this later in the talk. But this is the secret sauce on which we built our solution. All our containers are built on our own proprietary Zero Deb. So let's look at some images in action. So as I mentioned earlier, let's just look at the latest Python image that you have. So if you pick the latest Python image from Docker Hub, it is 1.02 GB, 224 vulnerabilities. And ours, the Koala hardened one, is just 64 MB and no vulnerabilities. So this is the scale of bloat in your containers that you're dealing with. 94% smaller image, 93% fewer packages, and obviously much less vulnerabilities. But the other thing is, today you could probably pick a container for Nginx or anything else which has no vulnerabilities. You could probably get that from Docker Hub as well. But what happens 3 months, 4 months, 5 months down the line? That container will start getting more vulnerabilities. It will start accumulating more and more vulnerabilities. So this is also our promise, that because our containers are much smaller, even the accumulation rate for our containers will be much, much smaller. And the way to do it is, let's just look at a Python image from 2 months ago. So this is the Python 3.133, which is about 2 months old. It currently has, as I mentioned, 249 vulnerabilities. The Koala from 2 months ago has 7 vulnerabilities. But I think the graph that we're going to show here is the crux. So 3 months ago, the same container that you would get from Docker Hub had 199 vulnerabilities. Since then, it has accumulated 50. Ours went from 0 to 7. So even the vulnerability accumulation rate over time is 90% reduced. And this is where we get to in terms of our own product, in terms of our own promises, that with Koala, because of 90% less vulnerabilities and 90% less vulnerability accumulation, your compliance will become much faster. You do not need to take exceptions, or have very expansive vulnerability reports. Your time to compliance reduces. The busy work as a security team that you do, that reduces. And the second thing is, this will be something that your developers will love. The need for upgrading and patching will reduce a lot. So just in the Python example that I mentioned, if you were using the Docker Hub Python from 3 months ago, the 50 new vulnerabilities that came up were in 23 different packages. So just to keep an environment with no vulnerabilities, your developers would have to need to patch 23 times over a 3-month period. Whereas for Koala, those 7 vulnerabilities only came in 2 packages. So in 3 months, you would only need to patch Koala or upgrade Koala to the latest version just 2 times. So it reduces the busy work and the toil that even developers will need to have. And these are our guarantees that we provide on our own product, which is that you will have 90% reduction in vulnerability accumulation, and you will always have the latest image of whatever cloud native stuff that you're using, which will be zero vulnerability in nature. So I would say, while this is all good and easy, and there'll be a lot of other companies who will pitch you the same, the fact is, our secret sauce that I mentioned earlier is what we do behind the scenes in building zero deb. And what we've been able to do is, we've taken all the complexity of building secure containers on our side so that your team can just do simple changes and just focus on their own productivity. So the secret sauce that we have is that we are building all open source from ground up. Every .deb Debian package that you would find in a container, in your Debian Linux, anything, what we are doing is we're taking it from source, rebuilding it in a secure manner so that we can provide you a seamless experience. On top of this, we built a couple of our own custom tooling, Debflow, which creates minimal OS packages, and then we have Captain, which is our version of Container APT, which creates secure containers. So because we are able to do this, because we are rebuilding everything from the ground up, because we have our own Linux zero deb, we're able to provide everyone drop-in replacement. If you're currently using any Python, any Java, JDK, JRE, PHP, anything that you use, all your developers have to do is just one line change, and everything in your code, everything in your applications work exactly the same, just more secure. And the second promise is, because we are building our own operating system, we have precise control over the SBOM or over what packages we put into the containers. Now, this allows us to do a few things. The first is, there are a lot of enterprises or companies which have bespoke use cases in their containers. You may want certain packages in your containers. You may want your container to be hardened in a certain different way. Because we have our own proprietary package and our own proprietary tooling, we're able to create bespoke use cases in containers. And the best part is, since our product is Debian-based, any of your DevOps or developers who know how to use Debian can do this themselves. It is so easy and it is so seamless, and this is the focus that we have on developer experience. So I'll just end with this, that because we have all of this precise control over SBOM, we have our own Debian containers, we can become your golden container image team. You can power your golden container image program through KoalaLab, and we will have the 3 promises that we mentioned earlier. You will have faster compliance, developer productivity, and you will have customized solutions, customized bespoke containers. There will be no lock-in with any kind of guard, and there'll be no branded Alpine or just some Shufa here and there. It will be pure and pure play Debian-based containers, and that's our promise. Just to give you a bit of background, Abhishek and me, my co-founder, we worked as tech and data leaders in a lot of companies. And we built housing.com earlier. I'm not sure how many of you were in the startup scene back in 2012 to 2015, but we scaled the company to $250 million in valuation during that time. The ideas that we have for a container-first Debian, this has got a lot of open source community recognition, and we've talked about this at a lot of open source security foundation events, at Root Conference, and if any one of you is in Hyderabad next week, you can meet us there as well. And yeah, that's us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abhimanyu and Anand, for that very compelling demonstration.